Welcome to the Swedish Junior Hockey Podcast. Today we have an international guest, Josef Rosenthal with Pro Sports Connect. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So today I had three things. As I was driving this morning, I thought, all right, what are we gonna talk about? Three main topics. Number one, you're from Germany, so I got to take the opportunity, especially after the World Championship and the ascent of some guy plays with Connor McDavid, right? German guy.
Yeah, some guy.
Yeah, some guy. But let's talk about German hockey, and since this is about juniors, we can talk about the different leagues within that. That's my the freebie that I want. The second one, which is kind of about Pro Sports Connect, which is how we got connected. What is Pro Sports Connect? But really, how does and I'm all about informing and educating, and I think this is a good forum for people to go to. But really, before we get into Pro Sports Connect, we can talk about the problem that players have about being connected. And, you know, the old edict about it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I want to talk about two things. One, the content of how do I get noticed and what should I have in terms of content? And B, how do I reach out? What are some ways to now get connected? So when I have good content, I get people to actually notice me. And then the second part of that is also players and agents and GMs and teams. How do I find good players? How do I see this kind of content and get to notice players that may be interested in coming to this place or that place? So, but before we get started, let's talk about you a little bit, and because you told me you're not necessarily a hockey guy, you're a baseball guy, and I know you're a student there in Germany in Cologne, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Talk about you and your background and how you got hooked up to this gig.
So yeah, as you already mentioned, my background is not necessarily an ice hockey background. I played baseball. I play in the first Bundesliga here in Germany with the Munich Hard Disciples, and I also study at the German Sports University in Cologne. So yeah, a little far apart, but the reason why I came here was first off baseball, and second of all the job opportunity I got with Pro Sports Connect. And yeah, I started working with them in April, got to know the team, and yeah, since then we've been yeah, chasing our goals to connect the hockey world, basically.
It's awesome. I mean, you know, fun thing to do while you're still in school, and you're a sports guy, and we're all connected to the same thing. So your role there is to grow the site, right?
Yeah, exactly. So my role is kind of, since it's a startup, so it's kind of like a broad spectrum. It's not like one major role, I would say, but it's in the area of marketing, PR, social media, yeah, and taking care of like public relations and yeah, the new members we get, and yeah, trying to improve the site so that it really fits the athletes, or like the sport professionals needs and everything.
Yeah. Well, and my motives is, you know, this podcast is primarily about Swedish junior hockey, but we branch out into things that I think are good for people. It's inform and educate, and I think this goes into both. It fits in well about, you know, for the people and the audience that are listening. What are, you know, we've had we've talked about Swedish Hockey TV. We've talked about Speedio. We've talked about different things that are interesting for the audience, and this is one of them. We had Leo Girard on with Got My Team, which is actually how I got connected with Pro Sports Connect, was through Leo Girard with Got My Team, and you guys are partners where I think Got My Team posts on your site. And originally I was actually, my first thought was, oh, they're doing the same thing, but it's not. So I'm going to table that discussion to later. First of all, since the ascent not surprising to you guys probably about Leon Draisaitl, but also the German success in the World Championship recently. Let's talk about German hockey, and inform us a little bit about the different leagues that are there. What's the top, like? So in Sweden you have the SHL, in here in North America you got the NHL. What's the top DEL league there? What's it called?
It's the Penny DEL, and underneath there's like a big league structure underneath. So with the DEL, the Penny DEL 2, and underneath there comes a lot of other lower leagues.
Yeah. And so if we take, what about the juniors?
With the juniors, we have especially for juniors, we have the German. Yeah, it's kind of it's a Deutsche Nachwuchsliga basically. So the German youth league, where players up to U20 can play in, and so it's kind of a better way of getting them to the big level, as well as just like letting them play with grown-ups right away when they're 15, which could be kind of unfair. So this is a really good level to play against each other in the same age group and also make it as competitive as possible. But yeah, other than that, if you're not in these kind of leagues, most of the times you probably have to get in touch with your local ice hockey club and then probably already play in men's leagues.
Yeah. What's the university, since you're in university now, like in Sweden, there's no, here in the US, college athletics is huge. Sweden, there is no college athletics. It ends in after high school or when somebody turns 18, that's when that's when club sports through juniors and men's take over. And they're trying to start something in Sweden, which we're going to talk about later. But how is it with university sports in Germany?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, it's kind of, we don't, first off, I don't think that any German university here has an ice hockey team, first off.
Yeah.
But for like university sports in general, it's always it's always organized by students for students. So it's no major institution that takes care of it. And as a college athlete in how do you say, in so to say,
Yeah.
you would have to always pay your own stuff, pay your own gear and everything. So it's tough. So the best option for that is probably the club club athletic part,
which I think is kind of how it is with all European sports at all levels. The people that the talent goes through school in the compulsory school up to 9th grade, so to speak. Then you go into gymnasium. Is there a gymnasium system? Up to 18 or 19, similar?
Yeah, we go until probably sometimes grade 13, sometimes grade 12, and it's usually people are 18, 19 when they graduate, maybe sometimes 17. But yeah,
and then some go on to university. But if you're a top athlete, now you're going to be pretty much going full time with the club. If you're a soccer player, if you're a baseball player, basketball player, or hockey player, you're going to go and do that, and you're probably not gonna, the unfortunate thing is you're probably not going to combine that with university studies.
Most of the time people actually have to do that because it's just like occasionally that people get paid right away. So what most people do is they either go to universities and try and get some scholarship there through, you could get like scholarships through the police when you get do an Ausbildung there. So kind of like what do you call that, like a craftsmanship certificate types of, or you could go to the military, of course, which can also give you some sort of scholarship if you play in a high level. But most of the times people would go ahead and learn a craft and get like a fair job on the side, because most of the times there's not like a lot of money in ice hockey, or like in minor sports, if it's not soccer.
Yeah.
So
yeah. A little bit difference in the academies of Bundesliga.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
it is what it is, and so on. What do you, so the state of German hockey now? I mean, I'm sure you've gotten, I mean, it's always been good, but it's never been at the level. I mean, German hockey, and we're talking about the highest league, has never been necessarily at the same level as the Swiss league or the KHL or the Finnish league or the Swedish SHL. But it's been producing talent.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
and I think because of Leon Draisaitl has been, but I mean, he's not the only one that is. I mean, he's just gotten the most of the press. But when I say hockey players from Germany, who comes to your mind beyond Draisaitl?
I mean, if you look at the World Championship we just had this year, and if you look back on the further on the past years of the NHL draft, where German players, like, usually it's 2 and 3 players always get drafted. It's not very in high rounds, but it's always German players enter the system. And if they can, they go and play with the world champ, like with the national team in the World Championship, which was also like um, a big addition to the teams, I bet. And so it's yeah, they've played a good level, and it's I mean, as I said before, like, when you enter German ice hockey as a teenager, you're pretty sure gonna find yourself sometimes in a situation where you play against grown men.
Yeah.
Even though you're just 18 or 19 years old, you will be playing against 30-year-old men, you know. So it's this kind of comes out of this, I would say.
So how do you compare then? So I'm looking at a list here on Elite Prospects that talks about, eligible players for the draft. Just like in Sweden, some of them are playing the DEL, some are playing U20, but the teams that are in here are kind of, are they directly tied to the elite clubs? Like, I see Mannheim is in here. I see it says Krefelder, but I don't know if that's part of Krefeld adult or elite team. Are they always just like in SHL? You have a SHL team and you have a J20 national that is same organization, and they feed up through that way.
That's basically the way it is. So, for example, for Mannheim, they're not called Mannheim Adler, but they're called Mannheim Jung Adler. So youth Eagles, basically.
Yeah.
It's still run in the same organization, and how it works, they play in their youth league. The way it's basically comparable to a farm system, I would say. So you bring them up, try and get them as good as possible, and if they're good enough, they will get their shot in the Penny DE and gain more experience.
Yeah. So I'm just pulling up, and what's interesting here, if I'm pulling up Mannheim, so Jung Adler Mannheim U20 on Elite Prospects, and that is the. So is that Adler? Is that Eagles?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Eagles.
I had a year of German my last year in Sweden, but my attendance record was not very good. So,
oh man, no, I
get
get that.
Floorball practice at 10:30 at night, and that was my 8 o'clock class the next day. So that's my yeah. But I'm pulling them up here, and first thing that strikes me is pretty much all German players. There's a Czech player, there's 2 Czech players, but pretty much all Germans. 05 Kevin Bicker, Detroit drafted. So, these guys are, this is from last year's roster.
Yeah.
It's not it's not a bad league. From the
No,
U20,
definitely not.
people are being drafted out of this league.
Definitely not. I'm pretty sure that already in these youth leagues, you know, the Mannheim Adlers, the Munich teams, all these like big organizations that always play for the German championship, they make sure that they also, you know, get prospects as soon as possible to develop them at their facility, and from there on, get them to win a championship for them for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's professionalizing more and more here in Europe and in Germany as well. I mean, here in Munich, they're building a whole new ice rink for the for Red Bull Munich. So it's there's things developing here, and it's getting more professional more and more.
Yeah. How so in the DEL, I need to put up, let me pull in DEL because I wonder how many so let's use so what's the nearest team to you?
To me, that's Red Bull Munich.
All right, so let's find Red Bull Munich here. There is EHC München, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this roster to see there's always, so you got 1, 2 defensemen that are, and then 1 forward that are US. Wow. Ben Smith, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Interesting to see. I didn't know that there was, I need to look up this guy. He must not have, he must have been born here and then moved away. Yeah, Boston Junior Bruins.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually how it works. It's yeah, players that players trying to keep on playing. And yeah, I mean, German teams take that with open arms, you know.
Yeah. So interesting. I mean, he played a little bit in the NHL, actually, several seasons in the NHL. Really interesting here. So he is the he was the assistant or alternate captain, was the captain for a little bit in that team as well. That's interesting for American to come in and be the wearing the C on the sweater.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but that always proves that, you know, you could learn so much from these experienced guys that come from overseas to your team.
Yeah.
And that's also probably one of the reasons why. I mean, not everyone has this kind of insights that he has, and this there's a reason why he played NHL. I mean, so he has to be, should be really good.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to talk about German league is the thing that comes to my mind that I just think it's, you know, I grew up probably watching more German soccer than I did. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't watched a lot of German hockey, but what I do know is the culture of the spectator sport of hockey in Germany is closely related to the spectator sport of soccer, and the culture of chanting and standing up in the stands, and the environment is similar to going to a soccer game, right?
100%. I mean, if you look at European leagues in general, I mean, if you look at Finland, Sweden, all these leagues, they have I don't know how it works, but in Germany they have special blocks for like the ultra fans, like the hardcore fans, and they would go on and chant throughout the whole game. Um, and I think it's even better when you go to into the east, like in Czech, for example, or somewhere in Finland and Sweden. I think it's similar and even better, I would say. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just taking the emotion where it needs to be. I would say.
I just think that's it. It's awesome. I'd like to go sometime to some of those games. You know, I've never been to an English Premier Soccer game. I'd love to go to one of them just to be part of that feeling of loving sport, and we here in the US could learn a lot more from that, but it's too starchy. Everybody likes to sit in their seat and you know,
Yeah, I get that. I get
my
that.
team back home, the North End stand up only section,
Mhm.
it's a different feeling about it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
so cool. Well,
Yeah.
let's go on to point number two, which is kind of going into this now about Pro Sports Connect, really, and the question about, I'm a player. Maybe I've played college in the U.S.
Mhm.
Um, I'm a friend of mine that played a little bit in the East Coast Hockey League, and the transition. So for some of these American players that are going over to the Europe and play, it's an adventure that they can do. Um, but there's also a lot of players that are sitting there and they may not know, well, how do I get noticed, right? What is the, and I think this topic can apply also to junior players. I want to go play junior somewhere, but it's hard for me to get noticed. Maybe I have skills, but
Mhm.
how do I develop my content of who I am and what I'm all about, and how do I get that content of advertising? So I'm talking to
Mhm.
someone that is in PR and marketing, but so you're talking
Yeah.
about how do we get our site out there,
Mhm.
but the same concept goes to a person and what they're selling, so to speak, which is them as a player. What do
Mhm.
you see are the common problems, or what do people struggle with in that aspect? And maybe you can relate it to baseball.
I mean, in that case, first off, you mentioned like American college players that play ice hockey, you know. We have the similar thing in baseball, kind of, where people, especially in America, when you stop playing collegiate ice hockey and when you graduate, the probability of you ever picking up a club again or like putting on your skates again is like relatively low, because usually how it goes is you go into a job and then maybe you go and watch games live or something, but it's or in some sort of men's league which is not really competitive and just recreational. So what we want to do is basically give these kind of people the open their horizon basically, and tell them, look, the world is so big. There's being professional ice hockey being played all around the world. Like the top five leagues in the world, are four of them are in Europe, and the likelihood of you getting picked up by one of these teams there is pretty high. You just need to get yourself out there. So they just to give these people this kind of perspective that there is a future for them in actual playing hockey, even if it's just to see the world, gain a little bit money, and like see the world, get to travel the world and play ice hockey is, I mean, for me that sounds like the best thing that there is. And yeah, I mean, for the second part with the problem for junior kids is yeah, if you're not part of these big organizations that we mentioned earlier, so the Mannheims and the Munichs and all this, it's pretty tough for you to get in this kind of network where you can get yourself out there. Because most of the times, I mean, you just mentioned it, there's a player on Munich that already played NHL. Like he has some sort of other connections that you know other teams in have that don't are not a part of the like the top league. So it's for them it's tough to kind of get these kind of connections. And yeah, so we saw that there's a need for a website or for like a centralized platform where all these hockey players and clubs and everyone can come together, yeah, and just exchange their stuff and see if they can get new playing opportunities and like all this type of stuff that we just mentioned.
Yeah, that's great. So, what do you think? What are some ways that, from a content perspective, what's the best
Mhm.
way to, what should I be focusing on? Because I think that if you don't have good content, you can
Mhm.
have. I mean, so let's start with: should someone have so this is an interesting topic. My son's 18
Mm.
and nobody, he never does anything on LinkedIn as an
Gotcha.
example. And you know, you're a young guy, but you've noticed that a lot of the people that you're trying to market to are on LinkedIn, but I would imagine that you didn't necessarily browse a lot through LinkedIn 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're trying to get away of, because, you know, it's kind of tough, because the business, like LinkedIn, is basically, it was made for business, and ice hockey is, so to say, of course it's a business, but you know, it kind of, it's not the right platform for coaches or clubs to, like, you know, to market themselves on. So we try to create a platform where they could, you know, have an account there and be open for connections there, so that players can like directly reach out to them, and there's no distractions of other stuff, you know, so it's just ice hockey right there.
Yeah.
And
But go
yeah.
back to your, I mean, for example, as a young guy, I'm 48,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
so, you know, I grew up before there was Facebook and social media,
Gotcha.
and I've had this conversation with my son's age of players that are like,
Hmm.
you know, they're not habitual, you know, their habits of social media is more about TikTok and
Yeah, for sure.
Instagram and Snapchat rather than even Facebook, or definitely not LinkedIn. But
Sure.
you know, so they are more, you know, the content that maybe they're thinking about is more visual, and in terms of
Hmm. Hmm.
posting things that are um it's not about really promoting them, it's about a cool thing, or it's a
Hmm.
cool event, or something that they may reshare. But if you're trying to sell your product, which is you, uh,
Hmm.
you know, I kind of relate this to almost like from a professional setting. You better have a resume, which the
Hmm.
resume is all about the basics, which is kind of the thing on elite prospects, but perhaps a little bit more
Hmm.
uh, additional things. Like elite prospects, you can't. There's no way to get in touch with you on LinkedIn. I mean, on elite prospects. So
Yeah.
LinkedIn, having a resume and having a uh, uh, um, having a LinkedIn profile, having a
Mm.
resume, and having a YouTube page, and having an elite prospects profile are all kind of basics that you better have.
Yeah. So, um, in that perspective, I would like, there's a few things that especially young players could do or should do, you know, to make them more attractive for clubs or like for agents, with leading the lists. Like, you, like, at some point you need footage of yourself, and especially not just like drills and stuff, you need game footage.
Yep.
Like, have someone either play in a league where, you know, okay, these games are gonna be broadcasted and I can get the footage and everything, or you need someone else to like, yeah, to record yourself while you play, and then you, that goes hand in hand with you needing to learn how to edit, you know, like you need to learn how to use some sort of editing platform to, the, you know, to cut it up together, because I mean, we see it everywhere. I mean, if you go on TikTok and everywhere, like your attention span is only like, I think it's right now it's about 6 to 15 seconds or something. And I mean, that's the same thing with every agent, and like scouts is the same thing. You need to hook them somehow, and that is by only having the relevant stuff in your videos.
Yeah, and
And
I think that that's an important part about the hook, right?
mm-hmm.
You know, you want to have the hook, but then you want the scout or the general manager or coach don't just want the hook. The
For
hook
sure.
is going to be the one who says, okay, I'm going to click on you. I want to
Exactly.
find out more. And it could be part of that. Then they're going to they're going to go straight to elite prospects and say, all right, who is this
Mm.
person? So how do I connect the two? But then it's going to be, at some point, it's going to be game footage. And then
Exactly.
I want to see, and maybe before I even take the time to look at game footage, maybe I want to have 3 levels of content. One's going to be the hook, which may be the beautiful goal or the beautiful hit or whatever's going to get people's, attention, whatever that may be. The second thing is going to be the 2-minute version, which is going to be more about if you're a defenseman, what's my physicality? How do I break out of the zone? How do I move the puck?
Exactly.
And then maybe if there's offensive sides of your game, how do I join the rush? How do I score from the point? How do I protect the puck or whatever it may be? But it's not just the how many goals did I score and highlights from that standpoint. The third level, I think, in terms of content is now I want to see, I am interested. Now I want to see a full game. So maybe you take your editing software and you take a game that you played pretty well, and maybe you just cut out all your shifts for that entire game and say, here's game on September 26th versus so-and-so, but I've cut out, I am white number 7. I've cut out, so it's only showing my shifts, but throughout the entire, good and bad. And so on. And maybe from there, I think that's content that is poignant.
And
but I think the hard part is going to be the hook. An interesting part that I've talked to scouts from the US is, so take a junior team scout. They do not scroll through the league footage and look at all the players, because they're going to be, I have too many to look at. I don't even know if this person is interested in coming to the US.
Exactly.
So you have to put yourself out there. And this segues well into Pro Sports Connect, because I think that so much of that is not going to be dependent on the content. It's going to be more about networking, first of all. So when you are networking, the content comes secondary.
Yeah.
How are you making a connection with, either through an advisor, through an agent, or directly to a player development or a scout, who's then, you make the connection, and then they're going to want to see content.
Exactly. And this kind of connection can be built up like anyhow, just for example, a junior player is trying to get better, and we have like a ton of coaches and players posting their stuff on our site, how to get better, like specific skill videos or something, and then you start following them, like start asking questions, always ask questions on how to get better, because for sure, like if your editing is nice, all good, but if your game is just no bueno, it's not going to work for you, of course.
Yeah.
Like you always have to be dedicated, and like always have to try and improve your game. Like I always say it's like 1% better every day, even if it's just minor things, and you always have to stick to that. And what helps with that is connecting to players, like connecting to mentors you could have, and get all the knowledge you can have. And this is where Pro Sports Connect comes into play, because if these guys get interested in you, then they have one central platform. I mean, if you click on members on Pro Sports Connect, they will have all their stuff lined up right there, where they play right now, what position they play, even what gear they use, and if possible, also their stats, and if also possible, already like game footage and all that type of stuff. So you would have everything you need about one player in one spot. And what in addition we're also trying to work on right now is to have some sort of like physical objectified kind of stats, so to say. So how flexible is this guy? How well does he react? How fast can he shoot a puck? And like this type of stuff that like can also separate, like the good from the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we have all of this in one platform and one profile, yeah, I think that will make a huge difference for a player, because he can just take this profile and be like, yeah, I have this right here, send it to a coach and be like, yeah, that's everything you need right there.
Yeah. Well, let's that's a great segue. So let's talk about Pro Sports Connect, which is what you're, who you work for, and so on. So in our conversation, I signed up with a username and password. It was very easy for me to get, and so on. First of all, what's the let's talk about how do we get into Pro Sports Connect? Because if you search for, like I did, if I just do a Google search for Pro Sports Connect, there's going to be a different site that comes up. So what's the website first of all?
The website is the URL is ps-connect.com. So
Yep.
you have to search for that. So we shortened up Pro Sports to PS Connect.
Yep.
And yeah, from there on you get sent to a general platform where we kind of present ourselves, present our business partners and everything, and like our mission and why we do what we do. And from there, you can directly register yourself. Right now, it's still for free, and will probably stay for free for some time, because we want to keep the barrier low of people joining to like build up our community.
Yeah,
So
and I want to challenge all the listeners. I think this is a great. You kind of mentioned it too. You want to be like the LinkedIn. Let me back up a little bit. My first thought was, okay, this is just like Got My Team.
Gotcha.
That Leo Girard talked about in the previous podcast. There's a component of Pro Sports Connect which is about jobs that are available, or teams that are players are looking for places, and teams are looking for players. But it's not. That's not what the website is all about. The website is more of a mini LinkedIn specifically for hockey.
Yeah, basically. So we just added this job feature just a while back, I think 1 month ago. Because of this partnership we went into with Leo and with Got My Team. Just because we thought, yeah, that's a good point. Like, we want to make this a part of our website, and it's another way of tailoring down everything an athlete or a club or an agent or a coach wants into one platform. And that's definitely something that people are searching for, are jobs, for sure.
Yeah. The other part of this is, so let me go back to the main page. So it has a news feed, which is similar to LinkedIn, which people can post. First of all, your logo is actually pretty cool. So it sticks out, right? I'm sure you came up with that one, right? But
no, not me. I just joined, but our designer who was in charge of that, I will tell him for sure, and he will maybe come back to you on that.
yeah. That's but it's really good. But the other part is just good content that are out there, which is kind of similar to what you see on perhaps Facebook feeds or LinkedIn or Instagram feeds. But that's the other part that you're talking about. Some of your partners that are, frequently posting on here. But I think it's good, very specific content to hockey that are in here. The other part I think is interesting is then there's a group section in here about gear. There's a little bit of a tutorial in there, and then you mentioned one of your partners, which is Great Progress, GRA Progress, that posts. They put on here locker room stories, but it's really about nutrition and workouts and these type of things. And then there's a German, and I'm sure this is in its infancy, so the maybe we should have a little bit about hockey podcasts should be in the groups here. We should probably talk about posting our podcast on here so people can get to it.
For sure. I mean, that's it's like it's a give and take, as I said. Like, when people register and put themselves out there, it's first off, it's good for us because it grows our community with every every ice hockey professional coming to that platform, we grow, and it is a benefit for the whole for the whole community.
Yeah.
If you share meaningful content there, even better. But yeah, on these on the group on these group yeah, on the group part that you just mentioned, yeah, it's to kind of like, yeah, have a filter and like get your own group with the people you want to connect with. I mean, we built some groups ourselves. You already mentioned it, how to use PS Connect, and there's another group called Gear Swap, where you try and basically kind of like an eBay. No one used it so far, but it's just there's a ton of possibilities of what people could do there. Um,
Well,
and that's just something, yeah.
I can tell you a couple of different ones. So in episode 41, we had Wouter Hauestraut from hockeygymnasium.se, which is a great website for people looking at hockey gymnasiums out there, right? It's specifically for hockey gymnasiums in Sweden, and it's a great site. So we talked about that. It should be on there. Another one that is really interesting, we had James Reason on from Target Aid, which is a fundraising platform for youth sports, not just youth sports, but for that's the reason why I had him on. And we're partnering with Target Aid, which has really good stories about fundraising. This team is trying to fundraise. Perfect group to be in there that talks about charitable causes like Börje Salming Foundation and these type of things, where people are connecting to social causes that could be not associated with a club. It could be in, attention to certain things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to connect you guys with some of these, and I'm going to have Wouter and I'm going to have James connect with you guys, and maybe that's something that would be good. Sure. The other part are going to be things like USA Hockey that have outreach about, they want German players to know more about, and European players to know more about the leagues and these type of things. So we talk about those things during quite a bit in the podcast, but I think that's going to be perhaps content that we can help with there.
Yeah, for sure.
So the other part about this that you mentioned is, okay, I'm looking for a player. You can easily go in there and find players that are interested, or I'm looking for a team. Easy to reach agents and general managers. This is in its infancy, so I'm sure that it's gonna grow quite a bit over time. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, especially because you just mentioned it. I mean, there's a point where like there's a section where you can see all of the members we have, and you can filter them down by position, by weight, by size, by gender, by club, by league. List goes on. And I think one of the most interesting parts is like the transfer section, where I need a player, doesn't matter where he's from, and then you click on interested in a transfer, and then you get shown all of the people that are interested in transferring clubs, and like maybe it could be coaches, could be players, and just everyone is on there, and you just need to reach out to them and start connecting with them, and maybe a meaningful connection will take place after that.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap this up. Thanks for coming on. I think this is great. It's good content. It fits perfectly what we are trying to do is help the community, and it's just another piece of the puzzle out there. So ps-connect.com is the website. What's the best way to reach you? How to LinkedIn or
like on business wise would be LinkedIn, but you can also, I mean, if you write our Instagram, we also have an Instagram account trying to promote our website there. If you reach out there, if you text us there, it's probably going to be me answering. So
What's
you
the
can reach out there.
Instagram
Our
account?
Instagram is Pro Sports Connect, but between every word there's an underdash.
Okay.
So pro underdash sports underdash connect.
There it is. And there's your cool logo on there too. So
Yeah.
actually, I think that's how I initially found you. And then I connected with Klaus on LinkedIn, and then he connected me with you. So this how, hey,
Exactly.
it's a great example of how networking works.
Exactly. You just got to put yourself out there, and at some point, if you're being consistent and work on your craft and everything in whatever you do, sometimes good things will happen for sure.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Josef, and we'll get this out here during the summer and get you connected even more. Thanks for coming on.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.